Today is the 29th of May. I am Paul Glumaz, and this is being brought to you by General Welfare Presents. Tonight is the tale of two paradigms. The one that's coming in, based on LaRouche, and the one that's going out, based on, I would say, the Whore of Babylon, because the Whore of Babylon is the Christian description of empire, which continues into Rome, Venice, and in the European sense, into Rome, Venice, and ultimately the British Empire, which what we're dealing with now. So these two paradigms, one is the paradigm of the dialogue of civilizations, the other is the paradigm of the clash of civilizations. Right now you have people all over the place organizing for both. You have Steve Bannon organizing for the clash of civilizations. You have others organizing for the dialogue of civilizations. And there was a conference in Beijing a few weeks ago, starting 2 weeks ago. It was called the Conference on the Dialogue of Asian Civilizations. And Xi Jinping gave the keynote speech, the president of China, and Helga LaRouche was there, and at a certain point she gave a 10-minute speech, and she wrote an article which was incorporated into the proceedings of the conference. Now, this was an incredible event with probably far-reaching consequences, far more reaching than anything you will ever hear from anyone. Helga titled her article, "The Highest Ideal of Man is the Potential of the Future." Man in the future. The highest ideal is your potential in the future. And I'll quote her, "Never before in history has a conscious design of a new epoch being put forward, with the idea of a unified humanity as a higher idea. Never has something like this been so clearly defined as a task." Now, and what she said, what she goes through in this, is that this higher ideal has to emerge from the best of cultures, the best of civilizations. And it has to have an ontological character. And what she means by ontological character, the conception of man as a creative being, as given, as an ontological aspect of this quality of humanity, and also the quality of a creator. And from this follows a moral codex, and in the Indian view, it's dharma. So what she develops in this is the coherence of the Confucian view with the Renaissance humanist view, with the view coming out of the highest level of philosophical and theological discussions in the Rig Veda and the Upanishads about the nature of the universe, about the nature of man. This is what she means by an ontological character. You have to base this new conception of humanity as a unified whole based upon those qualities in the primary cultures, in the primary cultures. And that this cannot be anything accidental or of a contemporary character. In other words, it has to be rooted in these profound traditions, and the highest of those profound traditions, highest aspect of those profound traditions. Now, this was resonated by what Xi Jinping said in his opening remarks. That he says that we must do the same thing. We must bring the highest of the cultures together, the most beautiful art, the most beautiful ideas that are in each culture, and those are how we have a dialogue, and that dialogue invigorates all cultures, without attacking the culture, but rather a culture that's isolated, a civilization that's isolated, is a civilization which is going to wither. It's not getting input from the outside. It becomes closed. Other cultures and other civilizations are stimulating other cultures and other civilizations. And this concept of the stimulation, not some liberal idea of putting them all together in one smorgasbord, but rather the dialogue itself between the cultures is the most stimulating thing in the development of the culture, of development of new art, new beauty, new ideas. And also to make this contemporary, that is to bring in science and technology, to bring the culture, bring science and technology into this as a component of developing the culture. This is very important because in Asia as a whole, there are over 1,000 ethnic groups. Okay? And at this conference, there were like 1,400 participants from 47 nations. But the most important thing that this conference communicated was this idea of developing a newfound confidence in the cultural history of all of Asia. And by the way, Christianity comes out of Asia, as does Islam, as does, in effect, Judaism. I mean, they all come out of Asia, essentially. But that's so. What Xi said is that we have the cultures developed out of river basin civilizations, the Tigris and the Euphrates, the Indus and the Ganges, the Yellow River and the Yangtze. These are where you have a continuation of these cultures, and that Asia must now assert its confidence in its own history, in its own civilization, and the best of its civilizations. And this is important because that is the only way that you're going to have peace. But it's also wouldn't be possible without the Belt and Road, because you have the economic component coming in, which is the Belt and Road Initiative. So when Xi says that culture and civilization are as important as economics, technology, and science, that's what he means. You can't have the Belt and Road without the dialogue of civilizations, without the dialogue of cultures, as he has laid out, and also as Helga's laid out. Because you would not be able to build the Belt and Road, because you would have too many conflicts, too much terrorism, too much whatever. So this is very, very important. And one of the most important things that has occurred that's going to feed into this process is the Indian elections, which took place over a period of a month and a half, and they are now over. And the Janata Party of Narendra Modi came in with a higher percentage of votes than they did in the first election 5 years before. Now, why? But this is a complete anomaly, because what happens with the Indian elections is a new party comes in like the Congress Party is replaced by this party or whatever. A new party comes in on the promise of delivering things, and then nothing gets delivered, and then they lose. They lose. They actually have less votes than they had before. But this didn't happen, and it wasn't because of simply what the Western media says, that he had a Hindu nationalist drive. He tried to use Hindu nationalism. It wasn't simply because of that, and it wasn't because he actually delivered much. He delivered some, but it wasn't that much. But what it was that the people perceived him as being sincere and committed to delivering in the future. And so they didn't see anybody else that had that quality. And so the the voters came out, and now the Janata Party has a much bigger mandate. And what this does is it stabilizes India, so that India is now open to working with China without having all this, you're giving in to the Chinese enemy, the rich, the Chinese, the whole Chinese. I mean, they had wars. They had military, they had a couple wars earlier. So this is very important. So being able to bring Chinese culture, Confucian culture, in harmony with Indian culture is a key part of this, and that's what Helga LaRouche was promoting, this idea of bringing these two together, or having a dialogue, having that dialogue to get up past this enmity which has been manipulated by the imperial and colonial past. So this is very significant, and so that is happening on one end. Coherent with that are the developments in Japan. Japan's current prime minister, when he first came in, was considered to be a fascist. He was considered to be anti-China. He refused to apologize for the atrocities that the Japanese did. And then at a certain point, he rejected the economic ideas that were being put forward by the bailout idea in one of the G7 meetings. And then he went and met with Putin in Sochi. And Obama told him not to go. Obama told Abe he couldn't go, and Abe went. And since that time, Abe has been shifting to a position not of being anti-North Korea and anti-China, and being part of the Western consensus, but it's been shifting towards a much more of a mediating role. And Trump's visit to Japan was extremely significant because Trump has made Abe a very close personal friend. And the issue of the new emperor is very important because in Japan, the psychological way this works in the population is a new emperor defines a new period of history. And they have labeled this new period of history harmony. Whereas the previous period of history, which was 30 years, under the previous emperor, was called seeking peace, which is different than harmony. Harmony means finding a way to... It's almost implicitly a dialogue of civilizations. So this sort of gives the Japanese government the cover to shift out of the geopolitical realm into the more harmonious realm. And this is what I suspect is going on. I'm not a Japanese scholar, and I should be very careful about these things, but that's my feeling, that's my sense of it. And so Trump visits him, and it's Abe who's going to intercede and mediate between the United States and Iran. Now, at that one of the press conferences, they were asked these kind of questions, and one of the questions they asked him was on what Kim Jong-un said about Joe Biden, and also they said, well, you know, he violated whatever the and Trump said, you know, it's not important, you know, and Abe said, well, he did violate it, but I'm going to go with Trump. I'm going to go with Trump on this. I'm going to follow Trump on this. So they asked him this question about what does he think about Kim Jong-un. It's a provocative question. You know, what does he think about Kim Jong-un's comments on Biden being of low IQ? And Trump indicated he agreed with that. and then this has stirred up the hornet's nest, and Joe Biden is going around saying, you know, that this is an offense to the dignity and whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I love this sort of stuff because the British system has a mechanism of controlling discourse and controlling the dialogue and controlling the way people think as a result of controlling discourse. And that term is called decorum. How many of you out there have heard this line? If you could only say what you say better, you would get somewhere. That's decorum. When what you say is truthful, or what you say cannot be really attacked, then the level of attack goes, well, you didn't say it right, or you got to learn to have manners. And this is how they deal with Trump. They don't deal with Trump necessarily with what he says. They deal with if he would just, you know, develop more finesse or develop refinement, or he's crude, you know, he's an eyesore and all of this. But that's this whole British thing, that you can't say the truth, because if you do say the truth, it's undecorous. And so people get into this thing, and so it's natural that Joe Biden would go off on this thing. But most people, you know, as long as Trump doesn't apologize, most people will appreciate the fact that Trump didn't apologize when this kind of thing is done. But this is a major form of control over the media, over the minds of people, is decorum. You don't have the right decorum. You don't have the right way of presenting it. You don't have the right manners. You're being too blunt. You're hurting people's feelings. You know, and on and on and on, and all this is how the whole, to the point that nothing can be taught. You can't talk about anything, because if everything you're going to say is going to trigger something, right? It's going to trigger something. Oh, you didn't say it right. Oh, how dare you say that? Or you're offensive. You're offending me. You're offending my dignity, and on and on and on and on. This is. So Trump isn't going for that, and I like that. I appreciate that. And whereas Joe Biden can go on it as long as he wants, he's not going to get any votes because he's doing that. He's just going to look more like he was criticized by Kim Jong-un and not having that great an IQ. So anyhow, however, the fierceness of now, you have to get a sense of this new paradigm. We're talking about a different idea, that the purpose of society, the purpose of government, the purpose of economic development is to develop the human being, is to improve not only the condition of the human being, but to improve the character of the human being, to improve the power and morality of the population. You know, that's the purpose of government. That's the purpose of culture. That's the purpose of civilization. And that is now emerging in Asia. And this is what's starting to unify much of the world around the new paradigm of economic development. And what do you have in the West is a complete psychotic fit. Bolton, Pompeo, Mike Pence. Mike Pence is telling West Point, we're going to be going to war with China and Russia. You're going to get ready for that, right? Because we got to stop the Belt and Road. I mean, you know, they perceive all of this not only as a direct threat, but their mind, which is stuck in geopolitics, it's stuck in greed, it's stuck in winner versus loser, it's stuck in screwing everybody, it's stuck in I'm better than you because you're a loser and I'm a winner. And it's this whole mentality which is just permeates the upper strata of our society, and the policymakers even worse, and the academic institutions even worse. This is being challenged on the deepest level, and these people are freaking out. They are freaked out, right? There was an article, an editorial in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, which is completely unhinged in a way, because it's saying that China, we thought China would want to join our model of economics, but they're not. They have their own model and they think that's better. Oh my God. What are we going to do? So the all-out assault is going on against China. The demonization of China is now going into the population. And this hostility towards China is now being spread. And in the churches, in the media, etc., etc. The China is an evil dictatorship. It steals all our intellectual property. You know, and then the Falun Gongs out there being massively financed, telling that they harvest organs, you know, and on and on and on. All this stuff is going on. It's a huge Red Scare, Chinese Red Scare. You know, it's an alien. While it hasn't yet quite, it hasn't quite gained that much traction, but it's out there. But among governors, U.S. governors, most of them want to work with China because it means jobs. Most of them want to have exports go to China. So at the governor's level, it doesn't really hit hard, but it's at this it's at the State Department level. It's at the Defense Department level. It's the military level. It's at the political level. It's to the point that Congress is about to pass bills that would start sanctioning Chinese companies and sanctioning Chinese individuals and sanctioning other countries working with China and sanctioning companies if they trade with China and anything related to the South China Sea situation. So, and then you have the Huawei situation, the total freak out on Huawei, and the all-out mobilization to get every country to ban Huawei. Why? Because Huawei is moving into 5G. 5G involves a much shorter wavelength. It involves satellites. But most of all, you can't control it. You can't tap it. You can't monitor. You can't do the surveillance. The entire edifice of the imperial power is to some degree built on the military-industrial complex and on the surveillance state, which is fully developed globally out of 9/11. Okay, and it's that surveillance state which doesn't work with Huawei. So if all the African countries go with Huawei, you can't monitor what they're saying. You can't monitor what they're doing. You're no longer able to determine what's happening. You no longer are available. You won't be able to pinpoint who are the people that you have to assassinate, who are the people that you have to corrupt, who are the people that you have to go against, who are the people that you need the dirt on to go after. You won't have that capability. That's a huge capability. Okay, like this thing with the Austrian guy. You know, it was a total intelligence sting. It forced the vice chancellor to resign. You know, and so these are the kind of things that the surveillance state can do. You know, or they can claim that Russia's hacking things when they're not. When it's actually a download. In the case of the Podesta and DNC emails. So this area of contention, and now we come to the situation in the United States. There's no deal. There's no bipartisan. There's no infrastructure deal. The Democrats are going for impeachment. Mueller set it up with his press conference today. Meanwhile, Trump is going after the Australians, the British, and the Ukrainian connection to the attempted coup. He's going after the intelligence community, and he's giving orders that they have to cooperate with Bill Barr on this. And they're saying they're not going to cooperate, and they're going to Congress. They're going to try to do an end run around Congress to prevent them from being able to have to cooperate with the Justice Department. So we have a war in the progress to occurring between the intelligence community and the Trump administration in the form of the special counsel, which has been appointed, and Bill Barr, and also the potential to release the the documents, to actually declassify. And then the Democrats are saying, well, if you declassify selectively, that's wrong, and so that whole thing is now going to go into a war, and it has to, because you can't have a society run by the threat of the FBI and the surveillance state. You can't have a society that controls the political process by threatening politicians if they don't go along with the program. And probably the worst place is the State Department, where there's all the true believers in this global new global world order that isn't going to come into being. And they hate anybody and everybody that the president would appoint. Doesn't matter who he appointed. He's the president. So this insurrection is not ending. It's going to against the president is going to increase, and the president is going to fight. And that's where we are right now in the context of the two paradigms.